My 22F, parents, 42F 44M, are unbearable after the death of my fiancé Refettered, 23F, and I don't know how to cope. So I woke up to my fiancé Refet being dead on Wednesday, the 1st of April 2020. She died unexpectedly, and I don't want to go into the details of her death with strangers yet, but it has been the largest, most traumatic event of my life. On the first day I called her parents, 50s MF, who came and picked me up to stay with them for a week because my parents lived across the country and I just couldn't handle being alone in our apartment anymore. Me and her family, which are very kind and accepting people, grieved together and comforted each other. They were extremely sweet and kind people, and I was very lucky to get to stay with them when it first happened. However, my parents were also informed of my fiancé Refex's death and made the long multiple-day drive across the country to come. They packed up my apartment for me because I just couldn't go back there, which was very kind of them, and picked me up the night after her funeral to take me to my childhood home. The first thing my mom did was complain about her own problems and how disrespectful and inconsiderate I was to not thank her right away or something. I don't really remember exactly what it was about, but I didn't have the energy to argue or put up with her, so I just mumbled some answers and tried to remain quiet. Then, later in the night, as we were trying to go to sleep, my mom decided to start asking why my fiancé Refetter didn't care for her that much, and I explained it was because she is homophobic. My mom then went into a huge screaming tirade about how she didn't want her daughter to be a lesbian. I remember her actual quote being, "Well, I am sorry that I don't want my daughter to become a lesbian," and how us holding hands when she visited us last year was extremely disrespectful. When she visited us last yet, she made my fiancé Refet break down and cry so hard I had to drive my fiancé Refetter somewhere to be without my mom for an extended period of time. I just cried quietly to myself until she stopped screaming and we went to sleep. Around the first few days after my fiancé Refet's death, I would wake up crying and in a panic. Her parents would just hug me and we would cry and talk until I was able to calm down. But my mom that morning reacted by screaming at me. She was saying things like, "Stop crying," and "I hate Fianc Refet now," and "If she was alive, I'd kill her because you just keep crying," and just similar stuff. It made everything worse and I just wanted to throw up for the beginning of our long drive home. She also kept taunting me by saying she was going to put me in a mental health hospital or whatever it's called. On the drive home, she kept bringing up negative topics any chance she got. During Albi, she called my fiancé Refetters a slut and a whore. She said that my fiancé Refets looked like someone who would sleep around and just tried to disgrace her character. She then tried to convince me that my fiancé Refet was toxic and controlling. She wasn't, and that she must have been abusive because she was driving a wedge between me and my family. It hurt me to even think that fiancé Refetter was abusive when she did nothing but care about me and was tender and loving to me when I was talking about how smart and beautiful my fiancé Refetter was. She kept saying I was smarter and prettier than my fiancé Refetter, which just made me feel incredibly crappy. Sometimes she would then have these strange mood swings where she would say if I could, I would kill myself so Fianc Refetted could be alive. That's what you really want, don't you? And when she would ask that, she would demand an answer and I just didn't know how to answer and I would end up crying harder. She also kept trying to say she knows what I am going through and I have to toughen up. But she married the first person she ever dated, so she never even went through a breakup before. She would also continuously joke and teen about how she was going to buy me a blow-up doll and dress her in my fiancé Refet's clothes, and it just made me feel so sick and uncomfortable and terrible when she would make that joke. She still makes that joke and now has my dad in on it. When we got home, I thought I was going to stay with my grandparents, 70s MF, but my mom informed me that I would have to stay with her or my sister, 20F, because I might have the towers and she wouldn't want me to give it to my grandparents, who currently have my emotional support cat at their house because my parents and sister both have dogs. My childhood best friend, 20F, also came over to stay with me for a couple weeks, which is a blessing, but she only feels comfortable staying with my parents because my sister doesn't take good care of her house.